outside of the podcast, we have the Curious Collectives. We get small groups, no more than 30. You get into tables of 9, and we have set topics of discussion. You can see everything that you want on the website at curiousbuilderpodcast.com. You can also find it in other cities. So the collective is going into Phoenix. Brad Levitt is going to be hosting a Curious Collective down in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to have Brad Robinson and Vince Longo leading a collective in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to have David and Angela Pensky down in San Antonio, also leading a collective. And a few other states are coming online later this year, as well, of course, as Minnesota. So if you're interested in getting together with like-minded individuals, this collective is kind of somewhere between what we do at the Contractor Coalition. It's also kind of a hybrid of what you see at Builder 20s. So it's a really open format, very much embracing collaboration or competition. If you want to further your education, if you want to increase learning from each other, you definitely want to find out more about these collectives.
I'm super passionate about nonprofit stuff. Like, when I'm done what I'm doing here and this thing is growing without me, the plan is to build a house or two for like Habitat for Humanity. Like we're going to give this house to a family that's lost everything. That is like my calling of what I want to see in the future. And don't get me wrong, I like building $10 million houses, but I don't live in a $10 million house.
Today on the podcast, we had Danny Spears out of Austin, Texas with Captex, and fasten your seatbelt or your belt buckle, if you will. This is going to be one heck of an episode. If you want passion, you came to the right place. Without further ado, here's Danny Spears. Welcome to Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I'm joined with Danny Spears out of Austin, Texas with Captex Construction. Nice to meet you, Danny.
Hey, nice to meet you guys. How are you?
I'm great. I was just giving you crap beforehand because you got a killer ZZ Top beard, and it's supposed to be like -15 on Monday, and you would have an ice road trucker of a beard if you were up here, dude.
Now, I tell you what, I love a lot of things, but the cold ain't one of them.
Nobody likes the cold. We're just better at lying about it.
Whew, I hate it. My bones can't take it anymore.
It is funny. I'm good friends. Mike Weaver from Emser Tile. He's down in Houston.
Oh, I've had emails exchanges with him.
Oh, sure. He's coming up here. Actually, he just landed. I just talked to him because I actually called him. I said, hey, do you know Danny? I'm hopping on in about 10 minutes. I'm actually in Minnesota. I got to go. So I didn't even answer the question. And then he's coming up next week. We have something called Sauna Camp. So we decided, just because I love fitness and wellness, we're doing this thing. It's cold in January. So let's hop in a sauna and then hop in the cold water. I got your heat. You can man the sauna.
Yeah, I did that this morning. I got in the pool and then get in the hot tub. I had
to. Love it. Usually we do a quick bio, but in the 2 seconds that we were on before we recorded, I think we'll just go in a different way this time. We'll eventually get to your story, but I love to ask people, like, what are they most passionate about? And usually the things that drive us, I mean, you've been in business now for 15 years, the things that drive us, whether you're married, whether you have kids, whether it's your business, your craft, or all of it, where we get our energy from is driven a lot by our passion. And so I'd love to really start this episode a little different than I have some of the others and just ask you, like, what is your driving force? What is your main passion?
My main goal and passion in life is to be a very successful father. And I think if you can be a very successful father, then you can be a very successful leader. Case in point, I didn't really have a great relationship with my dad. And when I promised myself, when I get to that point in my life, I'm going to give it 110%. And I did that. And you obviously can't see, this is my office here at the home. And it's littered with pictures of me and my family and our children and my grandbabies. And a lot of my stuff is really put on the outdoors. I'm an avid fisherman, saltwater, avid hunter, but everything I do is predicated on my family. And that's exactly how I run my business. I've had employees, and obviously people can speak on this. A lot of people have a hard time maintaining employees, especially good ones. I always make a joke that there's not another builder in Austin that can take my employees. They won't leave. They'll just laugh you out of the building. It's mandatory that I give my guys off 3 weeks a year because I expect them to be good dads, and I expect the ladies to be good mothers. And Christmas time, it's a no-go for me. I tell my clients, I love you. We work 7 days a week for 355 days, but 10 days, we're going to celebrate Christmas with our families. And that's what it's going to be. And I can tell you that It's a pleasure to work with families like I get to work with because they see the value in that. And quite frankly, nobody's ever questioned me when it came to like, well, how come you guys are not here right now? And so I love that about Captex. I don't bother my men or the women for 10 days. And I tell them, do not remember my phone number for 10 days. Because I'm going to be here with my love and I'm going to be here with our babies. And that's what we're going to do. And it's just like you start off the new year fresh, right? And everybody has this level of appreciation because we don't know what people are going through at Christmas time and the New Year's, and so lets everybody kind of like decompress.
I
And
mean, I love everything you said about that. It reminds me, my dad built for 30 years and he had a project manager that was a workaholic and he didn't have any other hobbies. And my dad used to always say, if you don't have hobbies as a young man, you won't have hobbies as an old man. And that was never a problem for me. I got too many hobbies. It's going to force me into retirement. But anyway, where I was going with this is his name was Dean, super talented guy. Nice. I've learned so much from Dean, a really incredible person, but he could not turn it off. And my dad told him on a Friday, he gave him $100 back when $100 was actually worth something. And he said, if you don't work the whole weekend, if you don't go to a job site, there was no email back then, but if you don't make a phone call, if you don't do anything with any jobs, he goes, this $100 is yours. I think he gave it to him. He goes, but if you do, you have to give it back to me Monday morning. And sure shooting, Monday morning, he walked back in and he handed the $100 back to my dad. He couldn't turn it off.
I can resonate with that. And the reason I say that is that before you establish a company, it's like you're grinding. And you were asking me about the 3 hours of sleep. That's true. I came from a background of hard work. And I also I was a dad at 21. But 21 years old and a dad, you know how hard it is to make money at 21. So I really pushed hard. And I worked 7 days a week. And I worked 14-hour days. And I built a whole lot of infrastructure for a whole lot of people. And I guess my body just got tuned that way. So I can understand that Dean has it in him to not let it go. Me, I'm up every morning, 3:00, work out for 2 hours and intense workouts. And then on the job site, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Then obviously emails. It's just funny because my daughter works for me now and she has access obviously to everything I've got via text messages or emails or whatever. We have over 100 employees. And
whoa, I had no idea it was 100. Oh, wow.
oh, yeah. So I do everything in-house. So I do all of my civil work. I do all of my structural work. I own an MEP company here in Austin. So yeah, every facet of construction on the multi-million-dollar homes that I build in Austin is done by Captex. And so very few things have subcontractors in them, cabinetry, sheetrock, and paint, but that's about it. Everything
How common is that in your market? I don't know the Texas market very well. That seems very uncommon here.
I don't think it's really common in America anymore. But
even in the commercial, what about commercial settings? Would you rival commercial? Because commercial, do they keep a lot of in-house or do they sub it out too?
From a legality standpoint, commercial, there's no way they would touch it. Yeah. They want everybody to be bonded. They want everybody to have their own insurance policies and so on and so forth. And obviously I do that with my other company. I own it. And so it's bonded and insured on its own self with the MEP. And on the side of me, I have my own framing team. I have my own concrete team. I have everything. All my red iron equipment, bulldozers, tractors, excavators, it's all owned by me. So when we have a development come in, we do everything by me. Like I'll run operations all day long. I'll sit on a tractor for 2 months pushing dirt, pilings, whatever we got to do. We work here on the lake a lot.
I'm surprised you don't just skip your 3 to 5 a.m. workout, grab a shovel, and there's your pushing. You can just push the bulldozer if it needs a jump. That's your leg day.
I just found that the team works better when the captain's there. Right. I always talk about the success of Tom Brady and everybody up there and Bill Belichick. Tom was he was the leader, but he knew that he didn't win the Super Bowl unless everybody else on that field was doing their job.
I heard something recently about reps. I can't remember who I was listening to, one of the radio heads probably, and they were talking about that even on whatever day it was, Tuesday, Wednesday walkthroughs, he didn't want to give up one rep to the backup quarterback. And he was maniacal about participation and reps. and that kind of commitment. It's funny you mentioned that because it's pretty obvious looking at your website, doing a little research ahead of this is just, and obviously there's the photo ops of it too, but I could tell instantly, you can tell the real McCoy, the guys who put their hands on. I'm not, and I don't pretend to be. Like, that's not my skill set, and not even really my interest, frankly. But from the standpoint of a compliment to you and what you just said about the captain being in the field, like, all the photos are you interacting on the job site with the field. And it's not that I don't like to be there. I run a very small operation and I don't have, but maybe it's no excuse. You have a massive operation and you're still there. So you do both. But it's very clear to see that you are at the helm, even in your photography and the website presentation that you have already.
Like they say, you live and die by the sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that you can be as an owner, as a captain, you're the fall guy. Nobody on my team is the fall guy. That's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to get kicked in the teeth, not theirs. If something goes wrong, it's my responsibility. I've never solicited business. I don't solicit business. All of the homes that we've been have been built by word of mouth. It's just facts, right? And when you build a business like that, there's a level of expectation that the client gets from you. Like, I've got some men that have been in the framing industry for 30 years, incredibly intelligent, and may know more about framing than me. But the homeowner doesn't want to hear from them. They expect the guy that made them a promise. He's the one that answers the phone. He's the one that replies back to a text message. And it's pretty, and I'll say this because this is how serious my team takes it, because I've got a lot of young guys that are 27 to 31. And you hear about this lackluster performance in people of that age. I brought these people on at a young age and I showed them respect. And I showed them, I'm like, you follow and you do what I do for 3 years and you can build your own home anywhere. And my expectation from my employees is that if you're still working for me in 10 years, you haven't learned anything. You haven't learned nothing. Why aren't you out building houses on your own? Why aren't you out opening up another small business? Because I'm not guaranteed to be here forever. So if I die tomorrow, what are these men going to do? So my expectation in these younger generation is like, hey, learn everything you can, get really good at it, and make sure you're passionate about it. And the biggest thing, the devil is in the details, always. Don't look at the broad picture. That's my job. I'm teaching you to be focused on getting really good at every one of these areas. And everybody knows that when you're building a custom home, the punch is the most necessary of all things. That final product. It is as important as making sure that the foundation is as strong as the sticks that it's holding up. And I understand what that looks like. And I tell my guys and my ladies all the time, hey, you're going to work here. You need to build this house. You're paying for it. And we have team meetings, barbecues, gatherings, this, that, and the other. Every 2 or 3 weeks, we're out. I'm buying lunch for everybody, or every other month, we're having to get together at the office. We shut it down at noon and get some beers out there, and everybody has a good time. Let everybody take a step back. We got 2 temperatures here in Texas, cold and hot as hell. And that's it. And you just got to fight the good fight. And I have a team that has made me successful. I did not make myself successful. I just believed in men and women. And I believed in my family, my children. And my daughters are incredibly intelligent, far more than their father. I'm just going to throw it out there. And they're like me. They just don't take no for an answer. They'll tell you, if my dad said it can be done, we're going to have to do it. He's not going to you're going to, if Danny said, you're going. And I will say this as well, in the construction industry, a lot of my clients, they've had nightmarish things happen to them building a house. And we didn't get along with our builder. We were chasing him down. He didn't finish the job. My clients have my phone number, and I only have one. And if I could put 50 people on this talk show right now that tell you, if I call Danny, he's got somebody sitting in my driveway in 15 minutes. That's how you become successful.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I don't drive Maseratis and Corvettes. I drive a Ford pickup truck, what usually has a gooseneck trailer on the back. So, it's just like, get dirty, use your hands. And every trade that I have, I've done their job. So critiquing something is what I'm meant to be. I'm probably not the best teacher, but I've been doing good enough. And every day I'm trying to learn a little bit more and push myself. And with the grace of God and all my employees, I've been able to do that. And they're not employees, they're my family.
One of the questions I have, because you have a really large company, and someone posed this question to me, and it's been a inspiring light for me for what I want. I've been building for 20 years, and so looking at, God willing, the back 20, what would that look like for me? And the question I'm going to ask you is, if you were removed right now, today, what would your company operate without you? Because in some ways you have a big company, so I assume you have structures and people in place, and 100 people is no joke. That's a massive operation. I can only guess at the right questions to ask for a company that big, but my question is, you've also put yourself as the captain of the ship. Like, every road leads to Rome in this scenario. Every road leads to you. If you walked out right now today and went to Nepal, I'll meet you there. We'll go climb. We'll go do the Annapurna circuit for 60 days. What would happen to the company?
Same thing would happen if I died today. The lights got to stay on. You got to keep on pushing.
But who's running it? You're gone.
My kids have the capacity to do whatever's needed and run it like a boss. My daughter's 28. I don't really like telling her what to do because she scares me sometimes. And so my architect, who is my best friend, and she is the lady that's designed 90% of the stuff you've seen on my website. Her and I have created teams together, and I'm a man who loves the strength. And I'm going to say this, and my guys used to hate when I said, I'm like, if I could have all women working for me, you guys would be homeless.
This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 20 years, I've been using Pella windows, and I couldn't be happier to call them as a business partner, a trade partner, and someone that really supports us in our quality builds. We use wood windows and doors on every single one of our homes, and 98% of every home that I've ever built has been a Pella window. I've gotten to know their team here locally as well as nationally, and the way that they support us as a craftsman, as well as they support our homeowners with their lifelong guarantee, has actually been a game changer for me. So when people ask me who I use, I recommend Pella. If you want to hear more about Pella's story, you can listen to episode 1, where I interview Peter and Ed from Pella Northland about their journey into the Pella ownership. I feel very strongly, and not just because I have a daughter, my mom was an interior designer, and just women are frankly just better at most things than men. And you and I will have to do some daddy-daughter counseling after this one. I've only got one, and she's amazing. But my point is, like, memory and customer service, and at least in my market, but I think about the housing industry as homeowners, business owners, the majority of businesses, especially in construction, would be predominantly owned by men. And yet most of our interactions are with women, at least for me. But you look at like Instagram, like our analytics don't lie. It's 70% women, 30% men. And when you are talking about, and I'm not saying men aren't involved in their home, obviously, but even when I build my own home, I always talk about this on the podcast. Like, I don't get a voice in my own home, and I'm the builder. Like, I look at my wife and I say, hey, honey, I'd really like this, that, and another thing. And she looks at me and she's like, not happening. And then I'll joke and I'll say, people pay me for my opinion. And she'll say, I'm not paying you. And my point is, we do need more women. And so the more and more people that I interview, that's a common theme. And I'd be curious to know from your, like, out of 100 employees, how many are women of your 100 employees?
The funny thing is that the ones that are women are project managers and operations directors. Mm-hmm. So my 28-year-old daughter will go tell a 50-year-old man, chop, chop, boy, I don't have time for your BS. This is a no-go time. It's a no-fly zone. Go to work. And his response better be, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do with me is buck the system with my kids.
Right.
Bad, because they know that I hold them to a level and a standard of, we are here to support our team and to protect our clients.
If they're anything like you, which I imagine they are, you've already said that, but it's not, you respect your people. I often say I actually, like you, they're not direct employees, but I've worked with a lot of my trade partners. I have one that we're third generation on both sides. He fourth on mine, third on mixing that up. Third on mine, fourth on his. My grandparents worked with his grandparents, my plumber. It's the longest one. And I guess my point is I couldn't build a single thing. And I often joke that these calluses on my hand are from tennis and lifting weights. If you see me working on a job site, like call the PM, I'm ruining your house. Unlike you, where you can do something, I can't. Design wise, leading, that's fine. But no, that's not my skill set. But my point in bringing it up is I ask. The single most important thing I think any business owner, forget construction, I think anyone, is ask for help. Because if you empower your people, it's no different than your family. If your wife tells you to do something versus if they ask you, maybe, I don't think it's just me, but I'll certainly hop a lot higher if my wife asks me to do something versus we all do. I think it's somehow ingrained, particularly in men. Like most men don't love being told what to do. But if you ask them, if you invite their help, oh man, you got yourself a super fan.
And I'll tell you, if you interviewed my team, they would tell you the same thing. Danny doesn't come here. If you see Danny hot, it's because something bad happened. Like I conduct myself in a different way. Like my crew will tell you, like, Danny, zero nonsense. He's not going to put up with it. He's not going to tolerate. We're here to work. You want to play grab ass, you can take that somewhere else. I ain't doing it. We're on these people's dime right now. You're not just working with me or for me or beside me. We are working for them. This family, this husband and this father and these children have allowed us to participate in building their future, which is, for the most part, a home is your most valuable asset, right? And it's not just because it's the money. It's because where the memories are made.
100% agree.
Yeah. And so for me, I tell my guys, don't disrespect this property. Be mindful. You get done, you clean up like it's your kitchen. Don't leave stuff laying around. Let's show these people the reason they chose Captex was not just for me, but for this team. And to be able to see the fruits of your labor, I've only fired 3 people in 15 years.
That's impressive, especially with the number of people you have.
That's because I only hire who I want, and I'm only going to hire the best.
But you also empower them. It sounds like you hire them young and you train them in. And if you believe in somebody, it's almost like you're adopting people, adopting puppies. And then
I can share text threads with you from Christmas that would be like, just amazed. And one of the people that I fired, it's actually funny. I fired him because he became a master electrician. And I fired him because I knew that I had taken him as far as I could. I knew that he had something special in him and that he needed to open his own business. Do you know every Christmas day since I fired him, there's a card on my front porch and a Yeti cooler or something like that and a turkey and a bottle of whiskey. This boy and his family come to my house and they drop it off. He came to me as an apprentice and he was in process of getting his green card and everything else. We helped him get through all of that. We helped him do everything, but he was so intelligent, like just so smart when it came to electricity. I'm like, yeah, I got him through the journeyman class and then he got it. And he was with me for 4 years. And he's like, hey boss, I'm going to go take my master's. I'm like, good, you need to. And then he called me the next day. He said, hey boss, I got a 90. And I'm like, hey, come get your severance package because you don't work for me anymore. And he said, what did I do wrong? I was like, I have taken you as far as I can. It's time for you to go out and create opportunities for others. And he didn't understand at that time. It took him about 6 months. I helped him do proposals and bidding and this and that and the other. I helped him get to where he needed. I didn't just throw him out on the street. And he had enough money that I gave him to where he could live, but he had to go hustle. And I've seen him hustle in the field. And I've seen him talk to customers and clients, and he had a presence about him. But more importantly than that, he had integrity. So if he didn't have integrity, I just stuck him in the back of a pickup truck and he could have worked till he was 95 years old. But I don't employ people like that. And call it 10 months after he was let go, Christmas rolls around and he landed 2 big jobs. His wife made me tamales and they set this stuff over and I walk outside, it's Christmas morning. I'm like, what are you doing? And I picked up the phone. He says, boss, I love you. And every Christmas he calls me 2 or 3 times a year. Danny, let me take you to lunch. Hey boss, I miss you. I'm like, you're the boss now, buddy. I'm not the boss. You get to lead like I taught you. And he says that to me. And I take more pride in that of understanding like being compassionate to others is great when they're willing to be compassionate back to you.
I mean,
So you
what?
asked me what would happen
Yeah.
if I was gone,
Mm-hmm.
my company would still be running
Yep.
because my employees see how much love and care that I give them. And then obviously when I do take vacation, they're like, Danny, don't worry about this. Go enjoy your time. We got you, boss. And like that's when I first started this thing, that did not happen. No, the captain is not leaving the ship and hitting an iceberg. It's not going to happen. So after the course of 8, 9, 10 years of just grinding it out and seeing like how each young man or woman was like reacting to things that need to take place in the field or managerial things or just like whatever it looks like, I started then backing up, not backing up to lead the business, but man, I'm 48, be 49 in August, and I want to travel, right? I want to experience some life, and that's just what I want to do. But I want to do it with my kids and my grandkids, and I got a little grandson and a granddaughter, and I'm just incredibly blessed human being. I mean, I say it all the time. I tell my grandmother, the only person I got left, she's 84, mean as a rattlesnake. I'm like, Nanny, I don't know what I did in this world to be so fortunate to have so many wonderful things in my life. And that's how I conduct myself.
What was her response?
My grandmother she worked until she was 77. And that's a hard thing for me to see because my mom and my dad had passed, and all of my family's pretty much gone except for a half brother and my real sister. And she is very stern and very rigid, like me. She understands the value of a dollar, but she understands how you make that money, and you just gotta get it right. And although I've never put a heavy emphasis on money because if you love what you do, you're always going to be rich in life.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I love what I do. I love creating opportunities. I'm super passionate about nonprofit stuff. When I'm done what I'm doing here and this thing is growing without me, the plan is to build a house or two for like Habitat for Humanity. Like we're going to give this house to a family that's lost everything. That is like my calling of what I want to see in the future. And don't get me wrong, I like building $10 million houses, but I don't live in a $10 million house.
It's something. It's interesting. So I build about 4 homes a year in the $1.5 million to 5 million range. And back in the day, my dad built about 40 homes a year, and we were about the same revenue per year. And he made a comment one time, and I appreciate his guidance. He said, "Never lose sight, regardless of how much a home costs, that it's a home." And it is, I think, builders across the country, we're not very good at taking compliments, and we're not very good at self-adulation, or without it being prideful and the ego side of it getting in the way of like realizing like we are serving a fundamental need in this country, in this world. Forget country, the world. Outside of farming and hunting, shelter is like one of the first things that happens. When Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, I bet they had to find some food, but you probably had to find some shelter. And like that will always be the case. And so I think it's really important to realize that, and you mentioned it earlier in the podcast, that about the home and the memories. And yes, there's a financial asset, but rich in life is watching your children grow up, or having memories, or playing a puzzle on a table. We're sentimental. Everyone's different, have a different level of sentimentality and of what they value. But when you are with your children, in particular, something about family that's because a force multiplier, it cements a memory deeper. And I don't know how I'm doing a poor job of explaining how a home, but most people, if I ask them, actually I'll ask you, do you remember the address of the home you grew up in?
Yep.
What?
1611.
Yeah, 13, mine is 1355 Bavarian Shores Drive.
Yeah.
And I was the son of a builder. We moved a lot. My point is, everyone pretty much remembers that address. And it's been 30 some years, or however many years it's been since I've lived there. But like it has a real impact on people. And I think the average American, there's varying stats on this, live in their home between 9 and 12 years. And I'm very proud of what we do in the United States being builders, but we do build differently than they build in other parts of the world. A lot of places, and I'm not the first person to talk about this, but let's say in Switzerland or in parts of Europe, they do tend to spend more money on their home, triple pane and a lot of energy stuff that someone might scoff at, but they're looking at multi-generationally because they're landlocked. There's nowhere they can go. And
Jamaica,
so,
hey.
And we build homes so fast here. Nobody can build a stick frame home faster than we can in the United States. And that's really probably since World War II to now. And going back to our earlier comment about women in the workforce, I think it's very well published that there's been a huge education gap, or not gap, that basically we've pushed children, I think through federal mandates and through schooling, to go to college. That's the only place you can go to college. Dude, you can make so much money in the trades. Honestly, if I could go back, I would probably be an electrician or a plumber. Forget being a builder. That's very lucrative careers to be had. And as more and more, I think it's 10,000 baby boomers retire every day, the opportunity is only growing exponentially. And I think two things are going to really be a huge impact for us. One is obviously technology, whether it's AI or panelization, or we're going to have to figure out ways to replace bodies. The second is, I think we are all fighting for more women in the workplace. And if the construction industry can win and get more women out of the population into construction, because everyone's competing for this base. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. It's not like this some new resource that doesn't exist. Everyone knows about it. But I'm saying, like, from a market share standpoint, if we could make it more appealing, more attractive, and a better place, and construction would be set up to just absolutely explode with talent. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
That is exactly my thoughts. Case in point, that both of my son-in-laws work for me and both of my daughters work for me. Right. And my son, Bo, who's 13, his exact words to me were, "Dad," and keep in mind, this kid runs a mini excavator and puts in septic tanks for me in the summertime. He understands elevations. He understands dig lines. He understands everything. He's told me, "Dad, it's going to be nice when I get to tell you what to do." And I'm like, yeah, don't wait for that day. With that being said, you're absolutely right. So owning an MEP company, and I talk about this all the time, is that there is so many opportunities, because the one thing you're going to need outside of shelters, electricity. You got to have plumbing. It's a necessity. If you live in Texas, you better have an air conditioner. And so all of these things together is like a driving force for me, not just to create the revenue, but to create the opportunity. Because if you create the opportunity, the revenue is going to come, right? And that's the biggest thing. Building houses, I think I built 20 some odd houses last year, $60 million. So my average home, 3-4 million. I do some that are 10 or 12, 14. But I built houses in really weird areas, topography over 40% grade. We're talking big concrete structures. And our motto, and mine, has always been like, all I want to do is make your wife cry when she walks in and I give her the keys. Because you know what? Dads, all of us, me, you, all of us, the same. Give me a room, a bed, a kitchen, a bathroom. Because if it wasn't really for our wives or the women in this world, chances are we'd still be living in caves. I think everybody would probably be like, that's about right. And so I take a great amount of pride in building houses. Dads always ask me about price. Moms are like, beautiful. And I'll tell a husband, you and y'all, I'm not a marriage counselor. I'm not working on that.
You got a part-time though. Anyone that's been building for a while realizes that relationship management, unfortunately, whether we want it or not, it is actually an important factor, because it is not easy. And we just had this conversation the other day with an interior designer, and she was laughing, saying she had an honorary marriage counseling degree. And because it is stress is variable and everyone deals with stress differently. It doesn't mean that you can't have a lot of joy in it. Like, your wife could still cry, hopefully, for joy. I've often said that someone will cry. Hopefully we can create the circumstances where it's joy, but sure shooting, someone is crying during this build. And my point is, it is stressful. I think it's important for us as the leaders of the ship to realize that, okay, it's not going to be smooth sailing from here to Europe, guys. Like, we're going to get some rough seas, but are we going to band together, and are we going to see this all the way through? And if we do, that band of brothers approach, like, I think when you work with your employees, or honestly, your design team, as well as your client, become your team for a short period of time. And they do leave their impact on the build and on the company, sometimes for the positive, sometimes for the negative, sometimes it's neutral.
We collectively, through architect, design, and build, we are working hand in hand with the same folks every day. I actually pay my architect designer for services rendered from project management from her, because their job is to do design. Their job is to understand the architectural pieces of it. But those are also the people that have been working with these clients. So they've been having very white glove service and very, hey, oh, it's Judy. Hey, how you doing, girl? That kind of stuff. Me, I'm like meat and potatoes, like the Tasmanian devil. They walk out there. I'm like, I'm probably going to say something that's going to offend you. And if you're easily offended, I'll wait until you leave. And it's funny because the dads are like, I love that dude.
Right.
And I'm like, when will the house be ready? I told you 6 months. I'm sticking that schedule. I'll call you when your keys are ready. You trusted me this far. Let me do my job. I promise you're going to not be disappointed. And I've always conducted myself that way. And either people are going to love it or they're going to hate it. And people that don't know anything about building, they love it. The people that think they know just a little bit about building, that is a train trying to fall off tracks in the desert.
Oh, man. I was going to ask you, this would be a fun segue to what are some red flags, but that's one of them, right? Because we did a design once for he did commercial construction on a huge scale, hospitals and things like that. And I can't say I know anything about building commercial, but he doesn't know anything about residential either. And obviously we both could be dangerous in the other person's arena. That being said, they're the hardest client because they know just a little too much. And they're also not very good at just being like, hey, I'm going to take a back seat. And to your point, the ones that say we hired you to do a great job, we believe in your work, we've seen it, we like what you do. Those are the best. Those are the best. Everyone has our team has a good experience. They have a good experience. It sets it up for success. When they try to drive your ship and you're the captain, that usually doesn't work real well.
I have a strict no driving my company policy. And I've told people before, if you want to build houses, go be a builder. Because for me, not all business is good business. I had somebody tell me one time, that price seems too high. I guess when people get hungry, they'll do the job. I'm like, ma'am, you can hire a jackass to pull your trailer. Doesn't mean he's going to get there any faster than a horse. So it's whatever you want to do.
I gotta up my mantra lines. Dude, these are amazing. I need more Texans on my podcast because I'm just dying laughing.
Now, there's an active list from Ray who works at AC of like when we have our big powwows, like 30, 40 guys out there, like I say some things and they're like, wow. Like he's like this whole shirt of these things that Danny says that are 100% certain would not be on this podcast. There's no crying in construction, man. There's just not. Like you guys deal with miserable temperatures up there. That could push somebody over the edge. But you come to Austin when it's 110 degrees outside and it's 140 in the attic. And so I've simplified my home builds. And by having all of these people in place, it allows you to be, well, first of all, the quality control is so much easier. You're setting the schedule predicated on how you built every house. And I'll tell you, and I've said it a million times, a foundation is a foundation and a frame is a frame. Ain't never going to change. Lumber is still lumber and it doesn't know it's lumber. It's just sticks, right? It's like, how precise can we make everything off those plans? And let's do it right the first time.
Have you guys gotten into any SIP panels down there for your construction? Or have you looked at that? What? SIP panels, just standing in place panels where you build them offsite and then the framers would just tip them up, but the walls would be pre-assembled?
No, I've got 15 framers and I could frame a house like that. 10,000 square feet, no big deal. Because by the time you get past the first story of my houses, I've got electricians putting boxes in already. By the time the floor joists are going in, we're putting in recess cans.
Wow.
I can turn a 10,000 square foot house MEP 21 days.
Holy smokes.
So that's why. But
what is your build? So your 10,000 square foot from the time you break ground to the time you hand them the keys, how many months?
10 months.
Wow.
10 months. Yeah. And that's the pools, that's the landscape.
Yeah.
That'll be civil work. That'll be whatever it looks like.
Wow.
Right. And so you guys can't do that there. It's too cold.
We can work year round. I think your unique advantage there is two. One, they have a driver with a bullwhip on this captain ship for one. But two, the fact that you have 100 employees, I feel very fortunate. I feel like I've been able to outpunch my weight in my career because I've empowered, even though they're my trade partners and my subs, I only use one per job. I've used the same the same cabinet shop for, let's say, 12, 15 years. Rich knows, he calls me and says, hey, my people are almost extensions of project managers. So I've been able to go a little light here. My point is is you have 100 employees. They're used to working each other. They have barbecues together. They spend time off together. They don't need to. They don't need to come to you. If it comes to you, it's probably gotten pretty bad, would be my guess. And so they're able to self-communicate, which it's hard to put a price on it. I don't know how you would actually figure that out, but you would have to say that it's invaluable and it's priceless, because there's no way you could do a 7 or 10,000 square foot house in this example in 10 months at the quality that you're building without a team that was that lockstepped. You just simply couldn't do it.
About 20 of them.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's just a whole nother level.
I'm running 2 companies.
Right.
And so but it's the level of want and success. Look, I have a client that I'm working for right now, and I respect the heck out of this guy. He's done very well for himself. Obviously, I'm not going to say his name here, but I'd be surprised if people obviously would know him. He came to me, and money is not really an object. And I'm like, look, I told you this was going to cost X, Y, Z, and you're making a lot of changes. I like open lines of communication. I don't want you to think I'm getting in your pocket. I am cost plus. So if you know that every time you buy $1 million worth of stuff, you're paying me $300,000, we're golden. He's Danny. I really like you. We spend a lot of time together. I can make more money, but I can't make more time. That within itself is just what it means. He cares about his family. He cares about his extended family and the places that he owns and runs. He cherishes his moments. He doesn't care about the money. And I've always said the same thing, and I said it earlier, money does not make you. If you love what you do and you're passionate about it and you're good at it, you're going to be fine. Somebody's going to need you all the time. Mm-hmm. And when he said that to me, it just made me realize that I was working for the kind of guy that I wanted to work for. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of some opportunities where I could have made $1 million. I'm like, I'm good. If I want to go slam my hand in a car door, I'll go do it for free.
It's interesting. Brad Levitt down in Arizona. So he often says this on his podcast. He's a good friend, and I haven't quoted him now for a year, so I'm overdue for this one. But he often would say that, are you operating out of abundance or scarcity? And I think it can't, to you, it applies both ways, in my opinion. One is you run your business out of abundance with how you treat your people, with how you treat your family, and how you bring them in. 2, you're looking at clients out of abundance too, because we've all been, and I know earlier on in your career you were there, because nobody could ever run a business without knowing what it's like to be hungry and scrappy. And just because you're doing great now doesn't mean that hunger's gone, but you do have the backlog to say no to bad clients. Everyone, I can speak for myself, I've said yes to not red flags, but orange flags. Just, I don't know, I didn't trust my gut. And sometimes as men, we need reasons. We need rationality. Maybe as men, we're not as good, or maybe I'm not as good at trusting my gut. But then in hindsight, I'm like, man, there was something in me that said run. And I said, you know what? I can deal with it. And you did, and you got it done, whatever. But like looking back, that's the benefit, of course, hindsight, it's 2020. But yeah. I think regardless, that quote works. If we treat our people out of abundance and our clients out of abundances, there won't be scarcity, and we'll certainly have rich moments. But I also think, like, when we try to attract clients, when you are desperate, man, you can't get a job. And when you are just confident and rolling, they're falling out of the sky. You can't stop them. And It's such a funny thing. Do you agree with that?
100%. And I'll tell you that the scarcity part of this is going to hit home when I say this, is that when COVID happened, I was the only builder in 2 neighborhoods that was just like, we're working. I got 80 mouths to feed, and they've got 10 mouths apiece depending on me to go to work. So that's the scarcity. The abundance came from that the people that I was working around seeing that I was doing, and they're like, we want that guy to build our house. They weren't shopping me. They weren't asking me questions. Danny, when can you start? We'll start tomorrow. Well, you don't have to wait 6 months. Are the permits ready? Yeah, the permit's ready. When do you want us to be here? Be here Monday. Perfect. Be out. I got it. We're tearing the house down.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. For over 2 years now, I've been using Adaptive. It's an incredible game changer. It's AI technology based. It helps you with bill pay. And as a builder, there's very few things that anger our subs more than not being paid on time. Well, those days are gone. Not only do you know exactly where you are, but you can pay people through your ACH channels, making draws extremely quick. With one click of a button, which used to take hours, my office staff is now able to generate a draw to the bank or to the client in literally seconds. The thing that I appreciate the most about Adaptive is their ability to keep changing. We've given them 3 or 4 feedbacks on the things that we need as builders, and within just a few months, they're rolling those things out. This is saving us hours per week and days per month in terms of our efficiency. If you're looking to upgrade your business, I'd highly recommend Adaptive. You can reach out to them at adaptive.com or listen to the Curious Builder podcast, episode 15 or episode 80, where we dive into their origin story. Oh, do you have 2 or 3 major breakthrough moments? You mentioned there earlier that like this last year did 60 million in revenue. When you first started, it was 4 of you in a truck trying to solicit work. What we're looking back now in 15 years, where did you see some major breakthroughs in scaling your company to where you are now?
I think one was my ability to not quit, because there's no success if you quit. You're just a quitter. And I've never had that in me. So I've always been driven to work, but to do and create something. So that part was one. I think 2 is when I started having men and women want to follow me. We're like, we want to work for you, Danny. This was great for us. It was a wonderful experience. I really enjoy what I do. That was 2. I think the first one would be my architect designer though. So we'll start there. That was 10 years ago. Like, we did not like each other.
This is the one that earlier on in the podcast you said is your
best friend and the love of my life. And so I could tell you right now, no, not happening. And then we started working through a house that was built in 1920. And so it was a historical home. And little did I know that the people that she designed the house for was her best friends. So that made it even tension, 4 knives, cutting it up. And so that kind of played itself out. And we finally got to a breaking point where she's like, oh, I respect how hard he works. And he builds a beautiful home. Oh my God. Everybody else that bid on this house said 18 months. He did it in 6. Everybody else said $450,000 higher, and he was $60,000 less than he'd spec'd it out to be. And so everything was handwork because it was a historical home. And if you don't know anything about Austin, if you own a tree, don't touch it because somebody's coming after you. So we had to work around all these parameters of this craziness. And so that job landed into another. And then we started talking like back and forth. And she'll tell you a funny story. It's 2015 or something like that. It's Christmas Day. I'm like, where are you at? And she's like, what do you mean? It's Christmas. Like, I'm on the job site. Nobody's here. And it's Christmas. I'm like, I don't care. Santa Claus ain't here. Like, we got stuff to do, man. And I think she hung up on me. I'm almost positive. And so we built 2 or 3 other houses. And then it started, building. And I think I had a bad day or something. I don't really remember. But it was a renovation, but it was a studs down reno. And obviously you've probably done these, but there's never adequate space in the subfloor. Mm-hmm. And she had this big, gorgeous, glorious home. And I'm like, well, hey, I love your design. Where are we putting the air conditioners?
Yeah. Why is it the HVAC is the last thing that anybody plans for?
I'm going to tell you what, if you ever seen this little lady get fired up, I am an architect. I do not do those type of drawings. And I'm like, all right. And so apparently she was having a bad day too. And she stormed out of the house, right? Like mad. She's my best friend. And so I was like, God, like I need this. So I walked outside. It was a Friday. And
at least it wasn't Christmas.
Oh, no. And she starts, she was so mad at me. So mad. And she was like, window cracked down this. And then she gave me the middle one. And I'm like, please, just let's back up, relax. And she tried to run me over. And it's hilarious because the homeowners were standing in the front yard. And John was dying. He's like, what did you do now, man? I'm like, dude, I just said that I can't put an air conditioner where there's I got nothing. If you guys don't want an AC, I'm golden. And he's just dying. And so all weekend long, I was like, send her a text message. Hey, man, I'm sorry, friend. I hope you forgive me. No response. Send her an email. No response. And then Monday comes along. She's like, you're really a jerk. You know that? And I'm like, I'm super sorry. I apologize. And she's like, I love you. Don't let it happen again. And I'm like, ah. And so, but yeah, it's just that kind of stuff. And so she holds herself and her company and her firm to the same level as me. She owns a firm that's in LA as well. And obviously we know what's going on there.
Yeah.
And she would tell you that she's drawn a ton of beautiful things. And I think I've probably built 95% of the stuff that she's drawn in Texas. And it's just been an amazing partnership. So that's probably number 3. And then kids coming of age.
What you said, 18 down to 13? Or I'm sorry, 28 to 13?
28, 26, 20, 13, 13, 11.
Okay.
It's just one of those things. So your kids come of age, and I worked a tremendous amount of hours when my daughters were young. And so I missed out on a lot. And that's unfortunate, but it's life. And so as time has went by and you become more successful with age, you look back on your life and you're like, God, I wish I'd have just had more time. I wish I'd have been able to do this. But it wasn't feasible because you got to send them to college. They got to eat. You got to have a home.
I think too, it's easy to have a little grace with yourself too. Sometimes you know what today. I know what I know today, and none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, and we learn from those. You mentioned failure. Failure is the ultimate teacher, whether it's exercise or whether it's business or relationships. And as long as we're learning and trying to get better, honestly, I don't know how you can succeed without failure. And so I think it'd be easy to look at any story and look back and say, I don't sense regret. Not that and it's not my place maybe to even say that, but even like listening to your story, thinking about even my own life and thinking, okay, like I don't have a lot of regrets. Would I do certain things different? Yeah, maybe. But you're at where you're at today with the choices that you made. And like you made a very conscious decision early on based on the relationship with your dad to not have that relationship with your kids, which is extremely commendable. And I've heard many times, not only in business and life, but like we either model after something what we want, or we're inspired by something we don't want. And everyone is motivated. You can be motivated by the carrot or by the whip, but sure shooting, I guess I hope you're just motivated by something. Like be passionate about something. Show me something. That's how I feel. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you feel pretty passionate about one of those as well.
I reward passion. You know what I'm saying? If I have a guy or a lady that works for me, I don't wait for them to come to me. And I've never hired anybody when they're like, what do you want to be paid? I never say that. What do you need? And then what do you want? Because if you just need $20 an hour, what does it take to get the most out of you? What do you want? And if what you want is $30 an hour and you're going to be dedicated to me and this company and to this team and to this family, then okay, I'll give you your 30. Like, don't tell me what you need just to get by, because that never ends well. And I do the same thing with my kids.
That's the same. That goes back to the scarcity abundance thing. It's the same concept.
When you come from nothing, I came from nothing. My first house had holes in the floors. Facts. It did. And you know what? I was happy. I didn't know what money was. I knew that I got to go out and hang out with my friends on the river. I could have cared less. We didn't have an air conditioner in our car. It didn't matter to me. Didn't have one in the house. I didn't know what it was. And so if you don't know what something is and then you get it, then there's a level of appreciation. I could care less about the house that I live in or the truck that I drive. I can tell you that when my granddaughter, Camila, says, Pops, you want to talk about pride. I don't do social media. I don't even know how to work Instagram. I couldn't tell you. I don't do that. Somebody else does that. I could care less about it. I can tell you that when my granddaughter walks in this front door, she comes straight to me. And I can tell you that my kids, hey, Dad, can we go fishing? If you're waiting on me, you're holding yourself up, son. Get in the truck. Let's go. This place will either work and run itself, but I'm not gonna sacrifice time for the love of my family. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna work if I can spend time with my family. Yeah, I've done enough hard work and pushing this, that, and the other for my team. And when my team wants to take off, I'll go to work for them. You guys take your 3 weeks of PTO. I'll come build a house. And it's great then, right? Because I'm at when we're scratching ground, we're putting concrete in, we start frame, I'm there every day. Because that's the meat and potatoes. Right. And then the PM comes in, my superintendents and project managers, they're doing their thing. And then I'm running the MEP through it. And I'm like every day checking on a house. Yeah, we're good. We're golden, move. But it's just like a level of trust with my whole family. Of you guys now are old enough to do what you've seen your dad doing and just go run it.
The standard question is, what are you excited for this year? But as you look a little further down the road, 3 years, 5 years, like what excites you? You're at a unique place from where you were to where you are. And as your kids are in the company taking ownership or whatever that looks like, ESOP or however you plan on transitioning out down the road, what does the next 3, 5, 10 years look like to you? What are you excited about?
I'd be lying to you to tell you if I hadn't people offer me tens of millions of dollars for both of my companies because it's happened. And my response to them is, I'll never stop working. I watched my dad, when my dad stopped, my dad was gone. I'm motivated by, I love to work out. I love to push my body to the limits. I love to push my mind to the limits. I love to see how far a human can push themselves to be successful. And it doesn't always equate to money and riches, but like, how far can you push yourself? And I could sell these companies and make a lot of money, but what am I going to do with my family? I don't mean my kids. Captex is a family. I've brought these people along and they've entrusted in me like I've entrusted in them. So if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Whoever's standing in line in Captex decides they want to stand up and change the game and help bring in revenue and become a CFO or a CEO, okay. But selling it and looking at the next 4 or 5 years, I just want to see my kids do well, man. Like I want to see them all graduate from high school. I want to put them all through college if they decide to go. My son's, I ain't going to college. I'm building houses. I'm like, son, school ain't for everybody, son. But that's my thing. And then see my grandkids get raised and take them fishing and take them hunting and come home and work my 5 days a week here, doing what I've got to do and just making sure that everything is copacetic and then go love my family.
What you had mentioned about pushing in, I could talk to you about hours about this, but maybe give me the highlights. I've got a few other guys that I train with that I'm more of a runner and ultra stuff. Just started to do strength stuff now because of some stuff I've signed up for. I got to get into the weights just to have the strength to do what I want to do. You mentioned your 3 to 5 a.m. is strength stuff. Or pushing your body. I'd love to hear just kind of the short form, like what you're into, what drives you from the physical side, and then you mentioned mental side. You like to challenge yourself. If you could talk about that a little bit.
So on the side of training, so 1,500 push-ups, 500 pull-ups, 500 dips daily.
Really?
That's yeah, really. And then I wear weighted 40-pound vest, rucking if I want to, but mostly calisthenics of using weighted vest. A workout with a trainer. He's 27, and he likes to give me a whole lot of messages. He said, "You're insane. You're insane." And he tells me I'm insane just because he's a man. I got guys that are 35. They're in the gym because it's a status thing. He said, "You're in your own gym, and I'm asking you for 5, and you're giving me 10." I'm like, if I'm going to pay you, I'm getting it all out of here. Mm-hmm. And at my age, I used to be 360 pounds. And so I lost 180 pounds over the course of 9 years. I did it all on my own. And it was super important to me. And I took my lifting as a very strong thing because I was boxing, MMA, fighting, all of these things. And so super important to me. And I eat like an animal, 10, 15, 20 eggs a day. That's just because I work out crazy. And then on the side of mind, I'm always just trying to challenge myself with a multitude of things, right? Whether it be via politics or looking at mathematic equations, like I'll lock myself up and I'm probably one of the only builders I know still. All of my bids are done on blueprints in my office with my lights on a drafting table on a legal notepad. I measure everything out. I do not use a computer because my mind allows me to I remember every dimension. And so by the time I get to the job site, I'm not picking up a laptop.
I knew a project manager once that he said he would take the plans home And he said, "I'll come back Monday and I'll tell you anything you want to know." He had to memorize the plans. That was his method. Do you, on a company of 100 people, you don't have estimators? Are you solely responsible for all the bidding yourself?
If I fail, it's on me, not them.
So
You
then
got
how are you going to transfer that knowledge to the next generation if they're not, or
well.
are they in there with you?
My daughters I'm teaching my daughters how to do that, right? Because now they're running like director of operations, right? She sits down and she sees, because if you own everything, essentially it's cost plus. It's going to cost in man hours and labor to do stucco, to do stonework, to do this. Then you're only thing you change is the labor rate is what the labor rate is. Then you're only talking about the supply, right? And then the supply is whatever it is per square foot.
Yeah.
And so that becomes very easy for me. I don't need estimators. Only because if an estimator screws up, what's he going to say? Man, I'm sorry, I just cost you $350,000.
Right. Right.
I don't need to do that. So it's just easy for me. It lets me get lost in the project a little bit. I can just sit in my office and have a glass of whiskey and get after it. And I can spend 2 days and have everything done. And it's funny because when we have our PM meetings, there'll be 25 or 30 of us, and I'll take all the brass and put them in one place, and I'll let each and every one of them talk about how their project is going. What does the schedule look like? Where are we at? What's lacking? What do you need my help with? Who do I need to go scream at? Those kind of things, because I've got to let them have ownership, because then they have the pride, right? And so I'll tell them, if it looks like it's going over budget, I need to know, why is it going over budget? What wasn't captured on my end so I can fix it? And I've probably lost $500,000 or $600,000 over the course of the years because you just missed something. We're just human beings. But if I'd had an estimator, I might have lost $2 million.
Right.
And if I lost it on my own, I only got myself to blame. But the PMs,
At the end of the day, your earlier comment comes back. Regardless, you're blaming you. It doesn't matter if you have an estimator, you blaming you. If you lose it, you blame you. At the end of the day, what is it? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it all comes back to the leadership portal. Sometimes, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. It's about the leadership. But I have to let my team lead their own projects. And it's funny because a lot of the guys, they'll tell me, we'll have our PM meeting, and it's funny because Alice will be like, "Oh shit, here it comes." And I'm just sitting there, and Danny's fixing to chime in, and I'll go over the 15 projects that I just heard about. I don't have a pen. I don't have a notepad. I don't have my camera out. And I'll talk to this guy. I'm like, I was there 2 days ago, and this ain't right. And we're walking the projects. And occasionally, one of the guys, his name is Paul, wicked smart kid. He's, "Dude, how do you do that?" He's like, "I haven't seen you all week, and you just picked this house apart in like 15 minutes. I'm like, it's because I am so involved, not only through the side of the architectural design and understanding what goes into it, I'm facilitating purchases and land, construction loans, interest rates. I am so down the rabbit hole with everything. These clients are depending on me to help facilitate everything. We facilitate all the construction loans. We talk to all the banks. We understand what the market looks like. We do all the draws. It's everything is done through the management, but it's mostly just two brains, mine and hers. And so that's what it looks like.
Were you, I didn't ask you this before, and we're running out of time. I want to respect your time. So maybe just these last two questions. Did you, out of curiosity, were you ever in the military?
So this is a true story. I had a ride to go to the Naval Academy, and my dad was injured in a car wreck. I stayed home. And so I did not go to the military.
A lot of the principles that, and I have not been in the military either. I have some cousins that are in the Air Force and Navy, but a lot of your principles, just the extreme ownership. Jocko Willink wrote that book. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but essentially it's a huge core of who you are, just listening to you talk. So that's why I asked that question. Because we didn't talk about it, but you basically started in 2015. Where did you spend 2000 to those 15 years, the last years? Where were you working to get the experience, or what were you?
Just commercial, mixed use development. And I truly watched good developers lose money because of greed,
Right,
of mismanagement, right? And they taught me what not to do. And the biggest thing that I seen in them is that there was no accountability. It's got to be such and such's fault. It's got to be the bank. What do you mean the economy's tanking in 2007? Why weren't you forecasting this? Why didn't you know? Why were you dragging your feet? Why were you jet setting around the world spending company money? And now we're not finishing houses. It's just like, it's that lackadaisical, oh, I've made it big time. Now I get to be a no-show Jones. And I just don't believe in that, because at the end of the day, if I don't do what's right, everybody suffers. And that's facts. And I don't want my kids or these men or these women that work for me to have to go home to their wives or their husband and say, wow, I don't have a job anymore. And that's probably one thing that my father taught me. And it was probably the only thing, because he didn't really say too many words to me. If you're going to do it right. And I'm like, all right. My grandfather was an engineer in the Danville coal mines. I bet you he didn't say 5 words to me my entire life. And everything he said, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough.
Oh man, now that one I've heard. We had a cabin in Montana. That was a very popular saying in Western Montana. One of my favorites. That's a good one.
Yep, and he did. And that's, my family was incredibly rigid. All of my family was in the military. My brother, military, right? My other brother, who APD 25 years, he was in the military. Like, there was a hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do that, there's honor in that. Even if you lose money, if you do it with honor, people can respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because we live in a world now where nobody has integrity. Right? And if they do, I don't see them. I talk to a lot of great men and women all the time. And I'm like, wow, that's a very strong, passionate person with a lot of integrity. But like in my experiences over my life, I just didn't see people wanting to like conduct themselves that way, especially in home building. Thinking about some GCs that were good. And I tell everybody, like, you're going to be our GC. I'm like, no, ma'am, I'm not a GC. I'm a home builder. I swing a hammer. I don't drive around in a Tesla with a rake in the back. Like, I don't do that. And so they're like, wow, like, you're going to be there? I'm like, how many times I fell off a roof, broken ribs, broken arms, too many times to count. But it says something when the homeowners pull up and they see you sweating out there beside your men and women. They love it. And I take great pride in that. So I think that's the best thing for me. Just keep on pushing.
I love everything about it. Love everything we heard. I appreciate your time. Want to respect it. And
Yeah.
for anyone that wants to see more about your company, we'll have everything in the show notes. And it sounds like you don't manage your Instagram, so we'll monitor what your daughters are putting out there. Or actually, I might actually run into you. We have something up here called the Curious Builder Collectives, and we're going into Atlanta, Georgia this next year, but actually San Antonio and as well as Phoenix, Arizona. Brad Levitt's leading a group down there. But do you know Angela and David Penske from Penske Homes? They're anyway, we're near enough to Austin that we've considered maybe even doing some events there. So if I'm up that way, I'll look you up, and I'd love to come stop in your office and introduce myself to you in person.
Barbecue with you.
I love that. Oh, that man, I might have to come down anyway just to see what one of these things is all about.
What
Are you?
Coast, we'll catch some redfish.
All right. I'm not much of a fisher. I need to move. Like I remember a lot of my guys hunt, and I love the mountains, but I'm more of I like the mountaineering aspect and hiking and that kind of thing. Physical torture, I'm very on board with you. But fishing, and like my joke with fishing is, unless I need a paddle and I have to hit the fish out of the boat, like I'm just not in. Now, fly fishing is cool because I'm constantly doing something. I hear tarpon fishing is great, or like stalking. Like some of the guys, my brother-in-law builds long-range rifles out in Wyoming and in Colorado, and I love stalking like that. I think elk hunting might be interesting to me, or antelope, just to get out and move. Like they put in Minnesota, deer hunting is a big thing, and I deer hunted once in my life, and you can probably tell I have ADHD to the max. And so I'm sitting in this deer stand at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'm just out cold. There's nothing to do. I just was I'm like, it's dark, nothing's happening. It's quieter than I knew life could even be. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what the point of sitting in this uncomfortable stand to sleep is. I'd rather sleep anywhere else but up here. Anyway, that's my affinity to hunting. Although I do like it if I could just move.
When you come to Texas, look us up, man.
I will.
We'll do a lot of fun stuff here in this super cool town.
All right. I will look forward to it. I'll take you up on that, and we'll be in touch with your team when we air it out. Appreciate your time.
Good, man. Thank you.
We're excited to announce that the Curious Builder Collectives are going into 3 other states. For those not familiar with what the collective is, it lives between what the Contractor Coalition is and a Builder 20 group. What we do in each state is we have a group of 25 to 30 builders that get in a room, and you break up into groups of 9. You spend 45 minutes talking about a set topic, whether it's branding, marketing, contracts, whatever that set topic is for that day. And then you talk for 45 minutes, you get up, You mix up the groups and you do it again, and you're out of there. You'll be out in under 3 hours. We're going to be going to Phoenix, Arizona. Brad Levitt is going to be leading a Curious Collective in Phoenix, Arizona. We are going to San Antonio. We've got David and Angela Penske from Penske Homes leading a group down there. And we have Brad Robinson and Vince Longo in Atlanta, Georgia, also leading a collective, as well as obviously me in Minnesota as well for our second annual collective. So if you're interested in collaborating with other builders, if you really want to dive deep on your business in a person-to-person relationship, ask a lot of questions, the collectives are for you. We also have in Minnesota Interior Design Collective, as well as the Architect Collective. Check out the events page at thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder Podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.